So I will keep this as conversational as possible. Who and what I am is where I'll start. I'm a licensed psychologist, state of California, and amazing time to be a psychologist. Actually, I have 2 PhDs. I have a PhD in business psychology, organizational psych, and then also clinical psychology. And again, because I'm really insecure about how smart I am. My story and how I wound up doing what I do. I made you cry, right? What? You cried at my experience, right? So I teach meditation at gunpoint. And what I've done is integrated a 25, 30-year meditation practice, and it's a wild time to be a psychologist because of 2 things. They cracked the human genome about 10 years ago. So this question, are we animals? The answer is yes. But more importantly, the nature-nurture controversy is gone. The answer is yes. You cannot differentiate because of epigenetics. The other thing they've done is the functional MRI is now to the point where you can actually see in real time on an intracellular level the brain rewiring itself. And so we're able to hack into actually the system. And this is what I'm doing here real quick is I'll tell you how the system works and why if you're not meditating, you're leaving money on the table. It is a necessity, particularly for the specific type of clients that I work with. I was talking to, and he is my avatar, one of my avatars, very, very much what I do. So my history, keep this as brief as I can, dropped out of high school when I was 16, primarily because I didn't understand school. School just didn't make sense to me. Like, what the hell if this is the biggest waste of time in the world? That being said, living in a car sucked. And so at 18, I kind of went the other direction. And that started this process of really understanding what I am is different. And, I'm 50 years old now. Had I been 25 years old now, I would have been diagnosed ADD, ADHD, and all of those complexity of diagnosis that they love to put on us. But my expertise is coming out of the hunter-farmer theory, and it's the evolutionary biology, epigenetics, how there are about 10% of the general population that are different. We are wired different. Normal people don't skydive. And so that ability for me to actually accept and see what I am on an epigenetic level, and then build that into a meditation technique and a meditation style that I'll teach you tonight, that if you're wired like me or kind of like me, it is, as I said earlier to somebody, people are alive today because I meditate. Otherwise, I would be murderous. And I'm not kidding you. My childhood was not all that great. But so, theory goes, very simply, human beings been on the planet 140,000 years. We're a bunch of animals, just like rabbits and cats and dogs and squirrels and everything else. About 10,000 years ago, something very interesting happened. The global climate became very stable. Prior to this, it was ice ages every 800 to 1,200 years. So it was a really hard place to survive. 10,000 years ago, the climate got real stable. And then what happened next? Somebody figured out how to grow food, and they started agricultural revolution. So about 90% of the population has adapted to a very sedentary, very boring world. They're wired for assembly lines. They're wired for W-2 jobs. You're wired for office space, for cubicles. I am not. Figured out quite a while ago, I'm pretty much unemployable unless I truly have a peer relationship with the leadership. If I have somebody above me and they're trying to direct me, it makes me feel like I just don't like it. Why? Because if you think about what happened 4,000, 3,000, 2,200 last 50 years, the world we've created is not wired for people like me. It's wired for farmers. And primary difference, you put us in functional MRIs, what we look like compared to the normals is that they have a very nice light up area right here in their left prefrontal. It's the executive function. So very simply, they see the world in a very sequential, logical series of steps. You put your finger in the ground and you put some corn in it, you cover it up, you water it, and you wait. And they have patience, they have all these wonderful qualities that I seem to lack, but they literally see the world this way. I, on the other hand, and probably most of the people in this room, have occipital dominance, or the back of our heads light up, which means that we use our eyesight to go through the world. And when you guys are looking at a spreadsheet or really consumed in what's happening, or video games, Duke Nukem almost cost me a master's degree, but that absorption into the visual world is the way I'm wired, and it feels really good. I don't know how many coders there are in here, but you can get lost in that coding world. A byproduct of having this part of my brain dominant is hypofrontality. It's the defining feature of ADD. So rather than seeing the world as this nice series of sequential steps, I see the world this way. I see it as this big picture, all these possibilities and all these variables working together in a very complex way, and I get it. I get the big picture much quicker than most people. And having that to explain to people that don't think this way, they think I'm tangential and I think they're slow, stupid, and lazy, they just don't get it. And so that frustration, and combine that with the two other primary genetic differences, is our reward systems are different, and which means that we have this dopamine receptors in our brain, and I won't bore you with all the allele genes, but boredom. Most people, 90% of the population, are very tolerant of boredom. And what is boredom? Boredom is this feeling in your body that you get this angsty kind of, not enough stimulation going on around me. Things are too predictable. And you see this nice bump at the end. People like me need that novelty, need something different and something more, something better. More interesting gene is the D4, the dopamine receptor number 4, is the FOMO gene. So it's this, if you think about farmers, they feel like they don't want to travel much. They like sedentary, they like that sense of being present in one environment. I am always feeling like the grass is greener over the next hill, looking for the next opportunity. Why? Because if I'm a hunter and I don't feel that, I'm going to kill all the woolly mammoths around me. So I'm always looking for the grass is greener on the other side of the hill. Why is all of this? This is the niche that I have developed into. I used to call it the entrepreneurial mind, used to call it a whole bunch of different things. Navy SEALs have it. I mean, higher performers have it, but, and I work in that CTO world a little bit. I actually have a couple really interesting people, and they were personal, dear friends with Steve Jobs. And those types of personalities, what happens when you go from that startup enthusiasm, great, crazy, into a farm, and it turns into a farm, they will fire us because we don't tolerate that boredom. And so what I do, the niche I cut out, I work a lot with the VC groups, and I go in and assess organizational startup teams, because you get 5 of us in a room, 5 driven people, I call it driven. We can create unbelievable things, but actually turning it into a farm and really letting it become profitable, we're not so good at. We have to hire farmers and we have to manage farmers. And so a lot of the, at the C-level stuff, we aren't that good at managing people that need very direct, clear goals, and they need to go live in a box. If you ask farmers to go figure it out, they look at you like you have 2 heads. And so that ability just to understand logically, this is what's happening. They're not stupid, they're not slow, I'm not tangential or impulsive. We're just different. So that's really kind of what I do. Meditation, and part of my personality type is that I tend to get very focused on one topic and really get into it for a while, get bored, and then jump to something else and jump to something else. And so cultural anthropology and genetics and biology and meditation and all of this stuff that I get into, becoming an expert in all of these fields allows the big picture to kind of come together. And what is the necessity for me to meditate? What is meditation? Is really what I'm doing here tonight. Meditation, and it comes through these waves. How many people here meditate? Ever tried it? How many people hate it? Nice. One person honest too. What is it?
Boring.
Yeah.
Cutting out the noise.
And so this even the impossibility to define what meditation is, and these, as a psychologist, and it goes through these last 20 years, 30 years, oh my God, mindfulness, and this huge wave of every executive needs to be meditating. Then what happens within a year or two, people, it kind of fades away. Why is it fade away? Because it sucks. It goes against our wiring. So very simply, if you are wired like me and you feel chronic discontent or feel like you're always trapped, this ability to actually understand what is meditation, what really is going on, is that functional MRI. So really what we're doing is getting this operating system up here to not fight against this operating system down here. We have two operating systems as a human being. One is incredibly old, and it is a very simple machine. We got a bunch of tech people in here. So this is hardware. Literally, you touch a hot stove, every single cell along this nerve pathway, you can trace it genetically, epigenetically, it ticks that experience in there. So hippies are right, trauma is recorded in the body. Hits this, and I use this as a model, so we have spine, brainstem, limbic, and the new brain. But this thing is hardware. So it hits this, and then what happens? It sends back an impulse to contract muscles. All of those experiences are stuck in your body, are recorded in the body. And if that's working properly, it's good, you're alive. If it's not, you're in the morgue. So it's a very important system, but it thinks for itself completely. Hardware, this is what gets everybody in my office. This thing is software. There's a reticular formation and all these clusters, 13 major brain chunks in there. What it's doing is recording the experience of that trauma through our senses. So it records square metal box with 4 burners. And as long as it's close enough to that pattern, we feel a little bit of that trauma in our body. And so all of these sensations you have in your body is this thing scanning the environment, recognizing patterns, creating this pings to the radar. It is unconscious. The unconscious is not a mystery, it's right here. And emotional intelligence, the other thing I'm really into, what the hell is emotional intelligence? It's actually being able to discern or figure out these pings, if they're reality or not. And actually being able to read the pings in someone else's body is your ability to actually see what's going on in their unconscious. Thank God that this thing is a real-time operating machine. It's a lizard brain. And so my daughter is really good at catching lizards. She can sneak up real slow and not set its radar off and then grab it. If you go up quickly, it'll set it off and it runs away. If this is a real-time machine, this thing above here, which you're trying to quiet, is a time machine. And so this thing up here can create mental models, patterns, that cause this thing to have pings. All of that stuff that's chattering away in your head is literally problems that you're trying to solve to change the way you're feeling in your body. And that's very simply how human beings work. And we're all work the same. We have some differences in left and right hemisphere. Most of you guys are probably left hemisphere thinkers. When we have emotional people and we have whatever. But that ability to actually see, and this is my doctoral research, first experience tonight, this was my dissertation. So if everybody folds their arms. I'm sure some of you guys have done this before, and now reverse it. she's still trying to figure it out. So why does this feel weird? And how do you know it feels weird? It doesn't feel right. And so that feeling that it's just not right, it was my doctoral research. So I did my PhD, it was combining both organizational psych and clinical psych, but it was self-sabotage, self-fulfilling prophecy. And these two operating systems have different objectives. That is the problem with being alive. This thing wants the familiar. It wants to feel normal. This thing wants to have greener grass over the next hill. And what happens to lottery winners? Within 3 to 5 years, we're over 97% of lottery winners. What happens to them? The worst thing ever to happen to a human being is to win the lottery. Absolutely destroys your life. How many people would like to win the lottery? And so that's the classic, and I do that from stage, and I'll show, I don't do that in these kind of, but it's, you show the stats on it, and still, this thing doesn't want to believe that this thing will destroy your life. It will. And this is why January sucks at the gym. Why does January suck at the gym? Everybody's thinking that this thing's going to go along for the ride. And what happens in February, and we're talking about that before we started, we start to feel resistance. We resist changing jobs, we resist change, but that's this thing. And then this thing's trying to talk you into what is the cost benefit analysis, all that. And then you wind up, wonking. Meditation fixes that. Meditation changes the relationship between here and here. So if you're not meditating, and I'll talk about what meditation is, and really what we're trying to do in it, and most meditations, and I try not to talk crap about other styles, aren't doing what I teach. TM, those kind, NLP, a lot of those kind of things, that's just changing this. It's not doing anything for this. If you're not changing this, you're not doing anything. Because this is what really is controlling your life. Most people don't like to see that or believe it, but it's true. That's why everybody knows how to eat healthy. Everybody knows that they need to go to the gym, but we don't. This thing wins. And so meditation can free you from that trap. And the metaphor that I use, it's in my book, but metaphor that I use that Buddhists noticed 2,000 years ago, that human beings are very much like an Indian elephant with a whole bunch of monkeys up on top. And these monkeys seem to have control over the elephant most of the time. Except when it comes to sugar, alcohol, and sex. That's true for elephants. And you put an elephant into a sugarcane field, no matter who's on top trying to control it, the elephant's going to go tear up if you're riding a male elephant and it smells a female elephant in heat, you're going for a ride. I mean, you're not going to be able to wrestle the elephant back in. And that's very much true for us. But the question is, and this is where meditation starts, which one are you? What is a Doug? Am I my monkey mind raising my hand saying, yes, I'd love to win the lottery. Since I know all this stuff, I wouldn't do that. Or am I the elephant that's impulsive and who are you? Good answer. Both. Anyone else? Monkeys? Elephants? It's a trick question because it's both and neither. And so we have this third thing, mind, body, spirit, or pop philosophy, the observer, Eckhart Tolle, all that kind of stuff. We have the capacity for consciousness, something AI doesn't have yet. But that ability to actually observe itself without judgment. So all these practices to expand your consciousness, all this hippie crap, and you can tell I'm not a hippie, but that ability to actually step outside of the monkey mind and hear the monkey mind chattering, and also feel the elephant's resistance to going to the gym. NLP, if you want to become a Marine, they build, basically, you're building a new gorilla up here to take control of the elephant. And it works it's a great business model. It works for 6 to 8 to 12 weeks. And then you got to sign up for the next course. But that ability to actually see what's happening is something I call the logical awareness. You're able to step out of yourself and call bullshit on yourself. We're living in a delusion. We're living in a projection. But if you know it, you're in this observer, and the logical container to keep these impulses in check. Because this thing wants the familiar, this thing wants something new. And so that ability to actually step out and build that awareness and see and discern actually these radar pings, because this thing is lying to us constantly. And wiring these two things together, you start to have lower and lower and lower resistance to doing things. The massive takeaway that I do in shooting, and the best teaching tool I've ever had, is a 300 Win Mag, because there is no resistance in the present. There isn't. I don't want to do that, is this resistance thing of the elephant. And once you can start to actually feel presence, you can do anything you want. And this is, jumping out of an airplane, which is a very interesting experience. It's terrifying until you step out. And once then you're free, but fear does not exist in the present moment. There is no emotion in the present moment. Zero. And that gives you this ability to actually step outside of yourself and look in. More importantly, step outside of your direct reports or whatever, and actually see what they're saying, all these wonderful things, but what is their body really saying? And learning to speak elephant, and learning to read elephant, and learning to calm your elephant. And I teach people Jedi skills. But that ability to actually see that there's a lot more going on here is emotional intelligence. It is by far the best predictor of success and happiness and not getting divorced and not having your daughters on stripper poles. For real. Because this thing is always, seems to be, oftentimes, in the way of this thing. And slowing that down enough to hack into this system. So that's basically what meditation is. And there's many different types of things called meditation. Headspace app is wonderful relaxation training. So is Xanax and wine. I mean, there's lots of ways to get this thing to calm down. Meditation is, and I teach a Zen style, very specific Zen style of meditation, that is actually reality checking. Does my elephant actually match my surroundings? And is my central nervous system an accurate reflection of actually what's happening right now? And when you do that, there's no right answer to that, but the curiosity around that, this thing is designed to actually calm down. A byproduct of becoming present is relaxation. It's not a goal. And one of the things that I work most with my entrepreneurs is this thing called bandwidth. Everybody's heard the word bandwidth. It's actually a neurobiological term for how much tolerance do we have for safety in our body. How much can we tolerate safety versus distress before we go into action? And so it's, he's got limited bandwidth. The guy's always losing his shit. He's got great bandwidth. A bomb can go off and he's still okay. That is the primary benefit of meditation, is increasing your elephant's bandwidth. How much safety can you actually tolerate? And the answer is not much. As a human species, we do not tolerate actually calming down. shit. If you're driven like me, I had no idea how anxious I was until I started meditating. If you start meditating, your reports of anxiety will go up. But what's actually happening is your awareness. It's called interoception. We have perception, and then we have interoception, interior awareness. What is actually really happening in my body? And that is the start, and just your emotional intelligence starts to go through the roof. Seeing that he said this, but he didn't do that, and my spidey sense and all those other senses start to go up and up and up. So, and a lot of people, how many of you have heard this kind of stuff before? Pretty new to people. I mean, this operating system that we are, I mean, it's a bizarre experience to know you're alive. It's really trippy. And that ability to actually become present, another set of expertise I have, is this thing called the vagal nerve. Anybody heard of the vagal nerve? Where we're going in science is wild. So meditation, and if you're driven like me and you really do have occipital dominance, never close your eyes in meditation again, ever. We use our eyesight to look for scary things. And to close your eyes in meditation, it actually makes the driven brain think more. And we're not designed that way. And most Zen styles of meditation, you never close your eyes. Why would you want to close your eyes if you're trying to be present? And so you leave your eyes open, and then this vagal nerve and how the body works is most of the time this nerve is sending up signals to the brainstem to be on guard. That's what heart rate variability is. So when your heart rate variability is very low and your heart rate is 20 HRV, what it's saying is that you are on guard. And getting your heart rate variability to actually start to go up is really letting go. And being able to let go is actually the neurobiology of that is what are you letting go of? Everybody says, oh, you got to let go of that. What the fuck are you talking about? It's letting go of the tension in the body. Someone was talking earlier about, a meta practice for somebody they wanted to kill for a year. But that ability to actually let go, what are we letting go of is the reactions in the body that we're resistant to. So what I've developed is this ability to hack the vagal nerve in our belly. It sends signals up to the brainstem that cause the body to actually feel safe. But if you don't logically understand it, very quickly, almost reflexively for most people, they start to think about negative shit. Why? To increase the tension back in the body. That's why we do that, to stay in our narrow bandwidth. So we'll do an experiential exercise and we'll open up to questions. Where is safety? When are you safe? Everybody thinks. I could kill you with a hammer when you're asleep.
I would.
It's only here and now. 2 minutes from now, meteorite, we're all dead. That's a fact. But right now, in this present moment, we are safe. That is not philosophy. That's straight factual biology. And this thing says, And so we keep this narrow bandwidth of tension in our body all the time. So I go through all of this description to give you guys enough logical understanding to stop the narrative in your head. That narrative in your head, this chattering monkey mind thing, is just keeping all this tension up. So very simply, and I'll talk about the shooting experience in a second. Normally, when we breathe, and how many control freaks are in here? Control is wonderful. Loss of control sucks. It's bad when you feel out of control. So feeling control, very interesting part of the brain, but feeling like I'm in control of giving up control is really this core piece. And in Buddhism, they talk about right effort. It takes tremendous effort to have no effort. It's really hard to do nothing. And so it's kind of a conundrum. But this thing, the monkey mind, can control the elephant very easily. If I tell everybody to take a big breath in, that's this gorilla up here, or this little monkey or whatever, poking the elephant saying, hey, move these muscles. And normally when we breathe, we're using the chest muscles and the back muscles. And that's when you posture up. Japanese, super efficient people that they are, figured out about 600 years ago that if you relax your upper body as much as you can, you relax primarily your scapula is on your back rib cage, really relax those, relax your shoulders, relax your chest, relax your 6-pack, and then you got an 8-pack, these muscles really deep in the pelvic area. You literally, it's like a ball or an inner tube, you squeeze gently around here, and it feels as if you're lifting the breath up into the rib cage. Everybody try that. It's just and so I'm lifting up, and then I never push the breath out. You slowly release that tension. You control the release of that tension and let gravity take the breath. Yeah, he shivered actually. Try it again. You breathe in. Eyes open and really look around. Let yourself feel like you're in the room and slowly let your gravity take the breath. And most people feel a little wobble. It's a vestibular function kicking in. Everybody feel how quiet the room got. It's all of a sudden still in here. The little herd of gazelles that we are, calm down. That's resonating safety. And it feels like a bong hit. It's like, and the hippie stuff, my chi is flowing. No, that's called vasodilation. Your body, all these little cells, the tension in your body release, and then you can shiver at the end. It's called a piss shiver. It is. That's how the body releases that tension. That's meditation. So if you really try it again, and it's called orienting, you orient to the present moment, what's happening around. Really let the eyes do most of the noticing. Most people notice very quickly, whoa, I'm not thinking. And a byproduct of doing this is your thinking stops. It just stops because there's no problem to solve right now. And most people can tolerate that for about a minute, maybe 2, before they start to freak out. When I feel safe, I freak out. That's called post-traumatic stress. And so we all have PTSD to various degrees, and it's learning to actually feel safe in the body is meditation. And that ability to tolerate safety is very difficult unless you're very focused. And this thing that I do with the guns, how many people here have ever shot a gun? Like guns. I shot national level competition for years. On long range shooting, I shot 600 and 1,000 yard matches. You have to be dead still to shoot 600, 800, 1,000 yards. Breathing will move the bullet 10 feet. And I became profoundly addicted to this experience of actually shooting really far. But the recoil of the gun, you anticipate it. It's called a flinch. And if you flinch, you will be more than 10 feet off. So you have to stop breathing and you have to eliminate the flinch. What a flinch is resistance. And so what I've done is integrate long-range shooting. We sit on a cushion, I tap you on the shoulder, we go and follow a process to get into the gun. And it is remarkable when you start to build the interoception. You can feel these micro flinches in your fingers and your hands, and that awareness that you flinch. You know, I don't want to call this employee back. I don't want to fire them. You know, I don't want to do my taxes. I'll go retile my roof rather than do my taxes. But that is this resistance of the fighting of the monkeys and the elephant. There is no resistance in the present moment. You can do anything. You can fire anybody. You can do anything you don't want to do as long as you're present. You can jump out of a plane. And so once you get that, you're like, oh crap. And not meditating, you're trapped to believing these impulses are coming up with some rational narrative why it's okay to not do whatever you want to do. You're basically, as the Buddha said, you're asleep. You're asleep to this machine that you are. So I come speak to you guys and try to wake people up. I start everybody on a 1-minute meditation in the morning. And the secret to meditate, are you meditating every day? No. Do you believe the reason you're not? Yeah. And so discipline, accountability, all of these wonderful buzzwords of leadership and all of that, it's all a bunch of bullshit. It really is if you don't actually start to work with these systems together. All you're doing is building a meaner gorilla that eventually will fail or you sabotage another area of your life. And so that ability to actually meditate for 1 minute somewhere in the morning and keep it. Making it to the cushion is the most important part. Start a timer, take 4 of these breaths, 6 of these breaths, and we'll meditate here. At the end of this, I'll let everybody meditate for 5 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever. I'll surprise you in how long it is. There's no reason whatsoever not to meditate for 1 minute in the morning. None. I don't give a shit who you are and how busy you are. None. So calling bullshit on yourself is that process beginning. And there's no reason, and this is why in my book I describe it, women in particular, every single time I've had a woman come to the range with a group of guys, she always outshoots the men. I've had Navy SEALs get outshot by first-time shooter women. Drives them bullshit. But why? Men, in particular, we have a lot riding on the results, particularly for identity. Where women typically are much better at just following the process, and they're expecting I wasn't expecting to hit it. Where men, but as men, in particular men, I mean, if you're not meditating, you are sabotaging. And that's the other thing I say in my book over and over and over that a lot of people don't like to hear. Anything you can do better, which is pretty much everything, you're sabotaging. But this set point that I change, it doesn't mean I'm fucking up on everything I'm doing. It means that I'm just doing okay and can always do better. So optimizing the process and catching that and feeling my resistance to things is what meditation does. So that's my pitch. That's, I just really want to get the message out and meditate. And it's not, meditation apps are great if you want to do relaxation training. But if I'm in a fight with my wife, I'm not going to turn on an app. She'll get really pissed off. But that ability to take these breaths and actually step out of my resistance and my experience and all of those things and meet it with curiosity frees me from the normal fight that I always have, allows me to actually start to change.